Welcome back. We are working now with the love song of G. Alfred Prufrock, and we are going to talk really quickly about this title, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. It's going to be difficult to understand how it's possible that we could be looking at a love song that begins with the following lines. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon a table. Hey, girlfriend, let's go for a walk when the sky looks like a dead body. I mean, right away, we're going to be stuck with a bizarre kind of irony that's involved in this love song. For example, go through the poem and identify the number of times the word love even gets used. Now, you definitely have some issues between a guy, we're going to assume it's Prufrock, the speaker, and girl or girls. In the room, the women come and go talking of Michelangelo. And so we're going to find ourselves asking questions about who are the women or woman, who is the woman, in the poem itself that he is specifically wanting to talk to. He begins the poem by saying to somebody, let us go then, you and I, but it's not totally clear who it is that he's even talking to. Now, let's take the word song for a moment. Many have pointed out there's a seriously sing-songy kind of effect, right, to the lines, especially the opening lines. But those lines that are kind of set off as parentheticals, in the room the women come and go talking of Michelangelo, starts to sound very much like a song. And in fact, there's a popular band that's played a game of taking this entire poem and putting it to music. If you take a look on LearnStrong, you can hit that band's website on YouTube and take a look at how they played this game. The melodic quality, let's just put it that way in our notes, the melodic quality, it's like a melody, and it's a haunting melody. Of course, it will be a melody in the end that will wake us and we drown. Exactly what's going on at the end of the poem we're going to have to ask about. Well, that's our background information. Let's now turn to the poem itself, and let's exegete at level 1 and 2, trying to figure out what this poem is actually about. We'll work through a few lines, we'll make a few observations, as you will do with your notes. We've already mentioned the opening lines, an etherized patient, a dead body, or someone nearly dead. Let's just ask this question. That's an interesting kind of idea, when the evening is spread out against the sky, and then the simile, like a patient etherized upon a table. Jot it down. What color is the sky when it's the color of a dead body? Or a body that's etherized for surgery or near death. A corpse-looking sky. What kind of sky is that? Now we're going to argue that it's the evening, right? But the sky is going to look probably what kind of gray or yellowish, and already we're going to begin to see some of the overtones of a certain kind of alienation, sadness, depression. One of the things that Eliot's going to argue in his poetry, certainly right up until the poems that he's publishing in 4 quartets, is that the human existence of the modern person is alienated, dislocated, unable to fit in, not feeling like that somehow I'm a part of anything. There's this thing called society, and then there's this thing called me, and I just don't seem to find a way to fit in so well. We think of Frost's Acquainted with the Night as a classic example of that dislocated human. Let us go through certain, notice the streets are half deserted, the muttering retreats of restless nights, and one-night cheap hotels, and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells. Whoa! Hey girlfriend, let's go for a walk when the sky is a dead body, the color of a dead body, and let's go to that section of town where they put sawdust on the floor, and then people just throw their shells, their oyster shells, and the rooms are one-night cheap hotel rooms. Whoa, what's going on? Hey girlfriend, let's go for a walk when the sky looks like a dead body, and we'll go to that part of town where all the prostitutes hang out. In the room, the women come and go talking of Michelangelo. We'll have lots and lots of sexual overtones happening in this poem. Do I dare to have the strength to force the moment to its crisis? He will ask later in the poem. I sometimes will call it a play because it plays out often as a play. Notice he continues and he says something about the streets of London. We assume London, it could be any city, right? Streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. And then notice the ellipse there, right? Oh, do not ask what is it. Let us go and make our visit. Not only do we have a rhyming of it and visit, right? But notice that you've got this overwhelming question. Now let's put this in our notes right away. This poem is going to suggest that life is complicated by an overwhelming a serious question, let's say it that way. A question you can't quite seem to get a good answer to. And then we're going to ask, at any point in the poem, does Prufrock ever actually answer the question? Or maybe even better, what is the question? Of course, we're going to meet at least one of the questions of this. By the way, if you just scan through, you see the number of question marks, right? Constantly, Prufrock as an old man, and this will be our first question. Who is the speaker of this poem? Answer, we assume. Prufrock. What else about him? Old. I grow old. I grow old. I shall wear the bottoms of my trousers rolled. Right? He's an old man who is asking lots of questions. But his first question is, hey, come on, let's go for a walk. Let's hang out somewhere. Where somewhere? In a room where women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. Now, of course, Michelangelo is the famous Renaissance poet, right? Renaissance painter. But there's been a lot written about what's going down here. Where are we? First of all, where are we? Some people have said we're in a brothel, where, for example, house of prostitution, where women can come out, meet men, come back, go into rooms and that kind of thing. It may just be something as innocuous as Prufrock is going to go to a tea party that he loathes. A tea party where he knows people are watching him and he does not feel like he fits in at all. After the break, we are now at line 15. And you have for your notes at 2b, personification in some of the most brilliant example of personification that we can find. Fog as a cat. Notice, the yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window panes. Now I should point out, T.S. Eliot is a huge cat lover. He wrote a whole collection of poems about cats. And then there was a famous Broadway show called Cats that translated all of these different poems into amazing onstage poetry. So Eliot is going to personify the fog as a kitty cat. The yellow smoke that rubs its muzzle on the window panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep. Now, a lot of different readers of this poem, some of my readers say this, some of my students say this is their favorite part of the whole poem, because did you see the description? It's like the fog is like a cat that kind of goes around the building and then decides, you know what, it's a nice soft October night, let's just take a little nap. Now it's interesting because taking a little nap will be something that it appears is happening at the very end of the poem when Prufrock is woke up. Human voices wake us and we drown. So this notion of sleeping or being awake is central to understanding something about this poem. But this is an interesting as well observation. The point here is that the fog starts by looking up at the stars, overclouding the star, and then now down to the pools in the drain along the ground. In other words, like we often find in London, it is a city of smoke, it is a city of fog. And of course, by the time that Eliot is writing this poem in the 1914-15 era, it is a city that has a lot of industrialized smoke, yellow smoke from industry. So right away, we may be making this distinction as well. This is a poem that's already going to say, one of the reasons for the alienation of Prufrock, and by extension all humans, is this thing that the city is about industry. It's not about beautiful mountains or prairies. It's about industry. It's about smoke. Prufrock, as an old man, is interested in the conversation about time. Notice, and indeed, there will be time for the yellow smoke that slides along the street, rubbing its back upon the window panes. No, Notice the repetition. There will be time. There will be time to prepare a face to meet the faces that you meet. Now let's pause for a moment and make this observation. If we are writing down favorite lines, maybe we just hit one of the first ones. T.S. Eliot argues that students at Worland High School wake up in the morning, and before they arrive here, they prepare a face to meet the faces they will meet. Jot down in your notes what you think that means. Some students have said, a mask. We think of Dunbar's poem, we wear the mask, don't we? This idea that we put a mask on. A persona, of course, will be the way the Greeks talked about it in their ancient theater understandings, right? You have a mask. But here's the deal. You're not the only one that wears a mask. Everybody else wears a mask as well. That is to say, the modern condition is inauthentic. Do you have a sense that when you meet people in the halls, and you say to them, hey man, how's it going? And they go, that's great. Do you have a sense they're lying? It's not great at all. And that if you, for example, could get behind their mask, they would report, man, I'm in some serious pain, suffering. Do you have a sense that some of the people that you see on TV, that are the wealthiest, that are the most beautiful people, that if you could actually get behind their mask, they might report that their life is not that great at all. It's not that glamorous. It's not that stunning. Notice he says, he continues with this notion of time. There will be time to murder and create, and time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. We're back to questions again. By the way, this notion of murder and creating, there's been a lot written about this as well. The notion that the human existence is about killing the boredom of your life to create some excitement in your life. So murder here doesn't necessarily have to mean the taking of another life. It can simply mean the killing of something, the deadening of something, and then of course creation. Of course, think about how, just like in our yin-yang symbol in Taoism, right? How there's two sides. Anytime you're murdering, you're creating. Anytime you're creating, you're murdering. That is to say, killing. Think about how we think about epochs this way, right? So for example, you have the Romantic period followed by this modern period, as we've outlined it in our lecture here. So in other words, one epoch seems to overcome another, or transcend and include, is the way the American philosopher Ken Wilber talks about it. But it's this notion that you have this movement, this pendulum-like movement back and forth between, on the one hand, killing, ending, murdering, and on the other hand, creating, right? Notice to continue, time for all the works and days of hands that lift and drop a question on your plate. Time for you and time for me, and time yet for 100 indecisions and for 100 visions and revisions before the taking of a toast and tea in the room the women come and go talking of Michelangelo. Let's just pause for a moment and put it in our notes this way. Prufrock is a speaker who is enamored of the opportunity to change his mind. He is paralyzed with thought, very much like Hamlet in his famous to be or not to be soliloquy, right? Conscience, he says in that soliloquy, makes cowards of us all. In other words, I want to do something. For Hamlet, it's killing his stepdad, uncle, king of Denmark. But I'm not sure if I should. I start thinking about it, and I can't make up my mind. Many have argued that already T.S. Eliot was a prophet of the modern era. An era that would see people and individuals who were unable to make up their mind about stuff, right? I'm going to do it later. You have this sense that the old man is beginning to wonder if life has passed him by. We will ask this question, so let's raise it in our notes now. By the end of the poem, what advice would you give to the old man, Prufrock? Right? What advice would you give to him? Some have already said, as they are looking at this, dude, you got to start actually doing something. Note the irony. The poem begins with an invitation for action. Let us go. But the question that gets raised, he's not so sure he wants to really ask. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. He's back to more time. And indeed there will be time to wonder, do I dare? And do I dare? Time to turn back and descend the stairs. He's upstairs going down. with a bald spot in the middle of my hair. Uh-oh, this will be interesting. We've got Prufrock worrying about his physical appearance. Notice the parentheses. They, whoever they are, maybe the women coming and going in the room, will say, how his hair is growing thin. It's an interesting observation. Let's put it in our notes. Old people have a tendency to begin to wonder what everyone is thinking about them. Now, of course, young people do the same. But young people know, for example, certain things about themselves. For example, beautiful people usually know they're beautiful. But an old man is beginning to wonder, what do they think of me when my back is turned? That is to say, the question of all questions, who am I? And how have I changed? Am I the same person I've always been? He says it, my morning coat, my collar mounting firmly to the chin, he's well dressed, my necktie rich and modest, but asserted by a simple pen. They will say, how his arms and legs are thin. In other words, as we get older, that circle of life thing, right? As we get older, we begin to have doubts about what we've done with our life. Prufrock definitely there. Notice the line 45. There maybe is the first real question. Do I dare disturb the universe? Now, of course, this is one of the classic lines of this poem. It ends up, for example, in the great adolescent novel that maybe some of you experienced in middle school called The Chocolate War by Robert Cormier. Do you know this one? This is a very interesting novel. On the morning that the private boys' schools teachers get together to hand out the chocolates for the famous chocolate sale, that's the fundraiser, right? Everybody's coming up to get their chocolates except for one young man, Jerry. When Brother Leon calls out his name, come get your chocolates, you are obligated to sell your chocolates like everyone else. Jerry goes, no. Brother Leon says, whoa, whoa, what do you mean no? I ain't selling no chocolates, I got nothing to do with it. Stand down, I got no interest in fundraising for your stupid school. No, adult teacher, no, you don't understand. You will sell the chocolates. The response, I ain't selling the chocolates. And the title of the novel, The Chocolate War. Of course, the rest of the novel, whoa, if you haven't read this novel, I recommend it to you. The rest of the novel is the way in which the entire school turns on this kid to jack him because he will not sell the chocolates. The teachers, the students, he gets beat up physically, but more powerfully, he gets beat up emotionally. In fact, for several days, no one will look at him at school. No one will make eye contact with him. So he does this weird thing where he has to run in the bathroom and look in a mirror to make sure that he's still there. In his locker, he has a poster of a boy walking beside the beach and the words, do I dare disturb the universe? Let's ask a couple of quick questions for your notes about this line. If you ask, do I dare disturb the universe? What's clear about the way you think about the way you've lived to this point? Think about this. If you have to ask, do I dare disturb the universe? The one thing you know you have not yet done is what? Right, disturb the universe. Correct? In other words, Prufrock right away is telling us, I know I have lived my life without ever disturbing the universe. But now we have to ask this question. What does it mean to disturb the universe? Like, what would that even look like? Can you jot down at 3B what it would be like for you to disturb the universe? Of course, to disturb means to agitate, yes? To screw up in some way, right? To change in some way. In other words, Prufrock's question is, have I done anything that deserves the recognition of change? Either personal change or, of course, some kind of political change. You'll remember Gandhi said that famous line, be the change you hope to see in the world, right? Prufrock is asking, man, should I start now disturbing the universe? Later in the poem, he will ask, do I dare to eat a peach? For Prufrock, this is where his life is gone. He can't ever really disturb the universe. It's passed him by And he's kind of reluctant now to even think about doing much of anything. Notice, he says, in a minute there is time for decisions and revisions, which a minute will reverse. I've got time to change my mind. I've got time to undo what I've done, or I think I do. Why do you think old people spend more time thinking about time? Tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. Right? When you're young, you feel like you have lots of time. But what is it like when you start, for example, to reach those really monumental moments in your life? Retirement! When they send you home and say, nice job, see you later. But what are you supposed to do then? Start thinking, how much time do I have left? Oh no, how much time do I have left? Prufrock's freaking out. He's running out of time. And his question is, what have I done? What have I done with my life? It's always an interesting question that juniors get to ask. You're just a few months away now from graduating, and the obvious question is, what have I done in high school? What have I done with my life? Of course, when you're young, that's a simple question that has an answer of, well, whatever I haven't done, at least I got some time, or assume that I got some time to do it. When you're Prufrock, it's not so easy. Prufrock then will turn, and he starts to talk about what he knows. Now this is fascinating. He's been asking about questions like, do I dare disturb the universe? Now he tells us what he has known, what he has experienced. An interesting list. Take a look at it. I've known them all already, known them all. Have known the evenings, mornings, afternoons. I've measured out my life with coffee spoons. I've had some students that say, that's a pretty depressing line. In other words, my life has been about a certain kind of rhythm, day after day after day, the way you would do coffee, or a coffee spoon, sugar in your... In other words, my life has become so unbelievably mundane and repetitive, boring. The French word here is ennui. It's different from boring. It's boredom on steroids.